Start streaming. Okay, so I think, as far as I'm aware, we should be live now.
Hello, people.
Yes. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of PFT Talk. I believe this is the 5th episode. So today we have some news from Apple involving the Apple Watch and some third-party straps. We also have some iPad Pro rumours, some news from Tesla, Nintendo, and a bit more. So first, starting off, we are going to be looking at iPad Pro. Now, there were actually two rumours at the start of last week. Basically, Unbox Therapy, I think, was the first person to kind of pick up on this. Basically, cases leaked that were intended for the iPad Pro. This has happened before multiple Apple launches and gives us a bit of a idea of the dimensions and stuff of this device. And looking at it, I honestly don't understand why someone would want a 12 plus inch tablet. I don't know what your views are, Patrick.
Well, 12 plus inch seems, 12 plus inches, you're kind of entering the kind of area of your MacBook, which I believe is a 12 inch device.
Yeah.
Now, given this isn't a laptop, but if the device does have very small bezels, it might work. I wouldn't be surprised if it actually turned out to be a very, very good device because, as we've seen with the iPad Air, when they reduced the bezels, the device, became better, it became smaller. Now, I think what Apple might be trying to do here is use perhaps the same frame that they had for the original iPad, maybe fill it out a little bit more with this screen, extend it a little bit. Obviously, 12.9 inches suggests a much bigger kind of size form factor, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was a huge success nonetheless. The thing that worries me is that at around 13 inches, we're kind of going out of the portable kind of scale for tablets,
Yeah.
so the device won't be as portable.
Another thing that worries me is the thickness of the iPad Air. I think if you scaled that up, it would bend so easily considering how thin it is. Now, Patrick has to go tend to a problem here, but yeah, basically we of course saw bend issues with the iPhone 6 Plus, and generally when you scale up a device, the bigger it is, if it keeps that thinness, it's going to need some kind of reinforcements. Now, this may mean inserting metal rods up the side or making it out of stronger metals, but I would be a bit scared about the screen breaking and things like that because of the sheer size of it. But yeah, also I think the main thing that's going to make this is the software, because I don't think this can run Mac OS. I don't think it can run iOS. I think it needs to be a kind of almost a combination of the two.
But is it possible to kind of gel Mac OS and iOS into one thing? Because the main problem is they've got two completely different input setups.
Yeah.
Like one you've got keyboard and mouse, and then you've got touchscreen.
I think that's what's going to make it. I would say it would be the software if Apple can pull that off. Hopefully they do. I'd like this to be a good device, but it's not something I would be interested in. I guess it's going to be aimed at the kind of travelling businessman who, I guess, if you're on trains and planes a lot, this could be handy. But yeah, as I said, it's not something I see myself using, though it is definitely an interesting device. Now, the next topic is Windows Media Center. Now, this has been kind of a software feature in Windows operating systems for a very long time now. And basically it's aimed at people who use their PCs as media PCs. So people who hook it up to TVs and use it to watch their content. And you've been able to view, for example, your movies, your videos, and even some TV channels through it. And Microsoft have basically announced that this will no longer be compatible with Windows 10. There will be no kind of media software on it, which kind of annoyed a lot of people, but it does make sense when you think about it, because Windows basically announced that the main features from Windows Media Center will get transferred over to the Xbox One. basically, because they want the Xbox One to be more of an entertainment system, they basically seem to be predicting that the console game is dying out, so they're kind of diversifying a bit and making it almost more of a TV set than a gaming console.
I think the media center thing. I mean, I had Windows Media Center on my previous PC. Now, granted, I didn't use the PC in terms of streaming or anything like that, but the feature went mostly unnoticed. I mean, the only thing I used from the Media Center package was the remote that came with it for changing the volume on the PC. Now, I can understand why they're moving it from the PC towards the Xbox One to kind of make it more appealing, and also to kind of make the Xbox almost the PC of the living room. What I don't understand is why they just don't cut it completely, because the Media Center was never a good piece of software. It was always crashing. It wasn't something that I enjoyed using. It was something that I would go into if I pressed the wrong button on the keyboard, and I would just go into it and I would find it really, really awkward to get back out of it. I think scrapping it completely and maybe just going with a few sort of different apps for the Xbox to give it more functionality would be a better idea, rather than sticking with the old kind of idea of the media center and all your content being in one place. Because as we know, the content is being really diversified. You've got your music maybe in Spotify, you maybe have your films on Netflix, and so on and so forth. So still kind of having the idea of everything being in one place on one computer is really one that's dying out.
Now, of course, at the Xbox One announcement, they did speak about kind of the TV overlay quite a lot. So I thought it'd be interesting to ask you, have you ever used those features on your Xbox One?
No, but there is a problem with that, because I haven't actually used my Xbox with my TV, with my main TV where I watch TV. I've got my Xbox 360, hooked up to my TV, but I actually have my Xbox One right up here with my two monitors. So I'm not a really good example of having your Xbox kind of as your main entertainment hub.
Yeah.
However, I do want to hook up an antenna to the kind of low Xbox adapter to my Xbox to give my whole kind of setup more features, as I'll be able to just watch TV on one of my screens. Certainly more features such as, well, in fairness, the ability to stream music from your computer is one that I really would want to have on the Xbox One. Granted, it's still on the 360, and when I bought my Xbox One, I expected it to be there, because up till about 3 months ago, all of my music was on my PC. Now I've gone on to use Spotify, and I'm kind of finding it annoying that Xbox doesn't actually have an app for Spotify, so obviously I can't play my music through that. But streaming music would be a good feature to actually get on the Xbox, and I'm sure if we went through the list, we'd find a lot more features that we would find hugely useful to actually have in the Xbox.
Yeah. I think basically they were almost selling it as the name Xbox One because it was supposed to be the one device that you needed in your living room.
Yeah, I think
entertainment
that's what they're trying to hammer home, really.
Yeah, I don't really know if many people actually use it for that, but I guess it's an interesting way to look at it.
For most people, it'll just be a games console. Most people will have a skybox, or they will have a preview, or they will have something else, and the Xbox doesn't necessarily eclipse everything else. It hasn't fully taken over the kind of living room as of yet. If it perhaps announced better integration with Sky, so that people who had an Xbox One and were away to move and to get Sky, maybe if they didn't have to get Skybox, maybe that would be an advantage to them. Lack of support of BT, especially with the BT Sport packages, is annoying, and maybe that's something they could look at.
You don't have Netflix, do you?
I'm not sure if there's. I know that Netflix is definitely on the 360.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it's on this one.
I feel like that would definitely be a big move because a lot of people, of course, use Netflix, but they watch on their computers. So I guess having the Xbox One as a way to watch on your TV could be a good selling point.
I think it would really be a major selling point. I think it could really swing the kind of battle of Xbox versus PS3, well, PS4, back into the favor of Microsoft because
Yeah,
there are a few key apps that you'd really think that they would be there, but they're not as of yet. Now, Microsoft did talk about opening up the SDK to a much bigger audience, but so far the apps still haven't come flowing as Microsoft has promised.
I mean, going off tangent from the topic here, I think console makers are beginning to notice that, of course, the whole kind of PC master race genre, of course, not everyone wants to play on PCs, but the idea of basically a console coming out every 4 years, the amount computers have progressed in that time, the consoles are going to be so far behind in things like graphics that they need to diversify and not just do gaming but also be used as entertainment boxes. So, for example, families where not everyone's interested in gaming still kind of see it as a good investment to have in their living room.
Yeah, it should really. I think games consoles should head towards what Microsoft has set out to be their goal, to be the one device to rule them all, to kind of just plug in your internet connection, so you have your Sky, you have your Sky Movies, whatever, Netflix, you have your music, you have your TV, you have your games, and maybe some internet capabilities of browsing the internet, maybe using your phone as a controller or something or other, just to kind of keep it all in one place so that, every 4 years you replace it with a new one.
Yeah. So I guess moving on to the next topic, the Apple Watch. Now, the Apple Watch came out, what, 2 weeks ago, 1 week ago, something like that. It's not been out for that long, and we haven't seen many official accessories yet, simply because Apple hasn't really opened everything up fully to developers. Now, there is what is being called the hidden port, I guess, which is basically what seems to be a diagnostics port in the bit where you connect the strap to the Apple Watch. And it seems that apparently, if developers can almost hack this, that you will be able to use this to charge the watch. Now, this would mean that technically, if a developer wanted, they could make a band which had a battery inside it, which allowed you to charge the watch, or something like a solar band, for example. I don't know how efficient that would be, but
I think it'd be fairly difficult to make, but anyway, glossing over that, carry on.
yeah, basically, we're not too sure what this diagnostics port, basically what you can do with it. There's a number of pins, though Apple have not announced what these pins can be used for. Now, an interesting thing that Apple have done is they basically launched a program called Made for Apple Watch, which is where they're working with big accessory makers, so people like Garmin, people like Belkin, Poetic, different case makers like that. They're working with them to get the perfect specifications, and they've basically set out guidelines or rules. So things like the clasps have to be made out of certain material, and the bands have to be made to a certain fit to make sure that the heart rate monitor sits exactly on your skin. And basically, if you applied all these rules and Apple approves your product, then you get a little badge on the case and it'll feature in Apple stores. Now, I think this is really good. This should encourage accessory makers to start making more accessories for the watch, and will also ensure that these are high quality accessories. I don't know what your opinions really are on the Apple Watch accessories.
Well, it's a little problematic to actually talk about accessories for a device that we haven't actually been able to properly review. But I think a good chunk of success of a device has to be assigned to the accessories that are available to buy to your device. For example, the likes of your Samsung Galaxy S6 and your Apple iPhone, and possibly your HTC One, will always be available with a lot of different accessories, whether they are first party, so obviously your Apple ones, and then your third party ones made by other different companies. Now, Apple have previously done this kind of made for Monica kind of badge thing with the iPod, with the iPad, and the iPhone as well, where you had your kind of specialist dogs by Bose and by other audio companies, fit whatever name you want here. And it proved to be a really, really positive kind of stamp on the accessories because people went for those rather than maybe a different brand that perhaps sounded less trustworthy. Will that be the case here? Possibly, because you won't want to pay less money for a case that might damage your device. You know, if you spend something like 500, 600 quid on a watch, you wouldn't want a band that might damage it, that might damage this special diagnostics port and then mess up your whole kind of watch. Accessories, it'll be fun to see what people can come up with. I think the idea of the battery band is one that is exciting because it might then have some sort of translation into phones and maybe capturing energy from movement into electricity that we could then to charge other things. And if that does happen, it'll be exciting. But for now, we're just going to have to sit tight and wait to see what the brilliant people at the different companies come up with.
Something I find kind of interesting is the Apple Watch as a watch. Basically, you know, smartwatches, there's not too many accessories you can really have. You can, of course, have alternative bands and then things like docking stations. But if you take the bands off and just have it as that tiny little device with the little screen, you could think of it as something that isn't a watch, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I don't exactly know what you could use that for, but I'm sure accessory makers could use this in other situations away from the wrist.
Well, in fairness, if you do think of the Apple Watch just as a electronic device, you could use it as a controller for, I don't know, your lighting in your home. It could really be a step forward into a more connected home.
Yeah.
So, you know, you might be controlling your fridge, your oven. I mean, I don't know what you would, but, you know, aside from abstracting from those kind of ideas, you could be controlling a lot more of the things around your home with your phone or with your tablet or whenever you're out the house. Possibly, I don't know, in your car maybe. I don't know. That might have an application.
Like, for example, with the whole smartphone thing, if a company were to make a mount that you place the Apple Watch on your front door so that when someone rang the doorbell, it showed you a camera, so it basically turned into a peephole, so you see them on the screen of the Apple Watch, and then you can choose whether to let them in or not. It could give you things like notifications for delivery, and I guess also set reminders so that when you're leaving, it can remind you to take your keys, it can remind you your shopping list if you're going out to the shops, things like that. Of course, that's just something I've thought of off the top of my head, but technically, the Apple Watch could be used for a lot more than just wristwatch.
Yeah.
So it'll be, again, very interesting to see what developers can pull off with this. But I guess we just kind of have to wait and see. So the next topic, in fact, this is kind of going to be led by Patryk because he wrote the article on it, and I don't really know much about this.
Right. So, as speaking of accessories, right? There is an Ohio-based company called Nikola Labs, named after the famed Serbian, I think it was Serbian, scientist called Nikola Tesla, the man who obviously came up with AC current and kind of radio waves and a lot of different things to do with science. Anyway, the point is, what they have come up with is a case that essentially manages to make energy. Well, it doesn't make energy, but it manages to capture energy out of thin air. Now, it sounds a lot better than it actually is. Essentially, what you get is, well, let me get here, a case. Just a case roughly around the size of a Mophie case that just clips, around the back of your phone, just like a normal case does. And what it does is it captures the energy that is lost by the phone when it emits a signal. So when a phone is updating itself when it's using Wi-Fi, when it's using 3G or Bluetooth, it sends out signal. Now, signal is essentially energy sent out as radio waves. Now, often these radio waves are lost or are just wasted because they're not being used. Now, what the case does is it has an antenna inside, and that antenna will pick up that energy and it will turn it back into electric charge that can be used to charge your phone. Now, that sounds all brilliant because technically you might have an infinite power source. Well, yes, you could, but it won't work because the kind of antenna is not that efficient at picking up the energy. At the most, the case will extend your battery life by 30%. Now, it won't do it kind of instantaneously, it will do it over a long period of time. So your noticeable effects might only be around 3 to 5%. Now, obviously, if you would, I don't know, take your phone and sit it next to a router and leave it there for about an hour or two, you might get 10 to 15% of extra charge just out of free air, which is a nice bonus. Now, we haven't been able to actually get our hands on the device because it is awaiting a Kickstarter launch next month, I believe. So keep your eyes peeled to that as Nicolab will release more details about the case as they come closer to launching it to the market.
I think there's two big things about this. First of all, it's just a concept at the moment. It's pretty much a theory. I would like to see it subjected to real world testing and see if the results are real, if you actually get that extra battery. But also, one of the main things for me is pretty much, obviously your iPhone cases are usually just made of some kind of silicone and plastic, so they don't go for that much. But when you look at cases like the Mophie that actually have technology in them, the prices really shoot up, and I could see something like this selling for more than £100, which I am not prepared to pay for a phone case. Of course, that may not be the case, but
I think selecting a good price is often the key to the popularity of a device. You know, if you think to, I don't know, the Nexus line, that was very well priced and it was very well semi-popular. If you look at Kindles, well priced, very popular. So I think if the Nikola case is to be successful, if and when it comes to the market, it needs to be reasonably priced. It cannot be extortionate and then give you zero results.
Yeah.
Now, I believe the last thing that we're going to cover today was Nintendo, as they have finally come up with some exciting news. They held a press conference a few days ago where they finally announced that they were in the green in the books when it came to profit. This has been the first time this has happened over the past 5 years or so.
Yeah.
Where Nintendo has actually made money, which is an amazing announcement, considering the fact that they've been losing money left, right, and center for since the release of the PS3. Sounds about right. However, the main announcement that they made was the fact that they will be bringing 5 games to the mobile smartphone kind of market. Essentially what they said was, we are giving up on the Wii U and we will now use our back catalogue of games and characters such as Mario and in partnership with Sega, so Sonic and all the other ones. What they're going to do is they will write completely new games for the smartphone, and they will be releasing them kind of one by one, with the first title to be released, I think it was the end of 2015. So it's still got quite a long while before it is released. But Nintendo has finally cracked and decided to offer their games on the smartphone, which is, I feel, something that they said that they wouldn't do, at all, because to them it was like a red line, much like the parties made their red lines in the election. Nintendo said, no, we will not be making our games on the mobile. But they've cracked, and I am hoping to get to play Mario on my phone, which is something I've kind of wanted to do for a long, long time. not some kind of hacked Game Boy version on my now dead Nexus, um, but a full proper kind of new Super Mario or something like Mario Kart.
Yeah.
Anyway, Quinn, what do you think of this?
Well, a few things I'd like to say. You said there were 5 games coming out, I believe.
Yeah.
That is between now and 2017, they said. So it's not really going to be a very regular flow of games. And if you look at the software houses that make smartphone games at the moment, they're producing games every few months. So I think they're going to definitely have to make something noticeable here. Now, also another thing is we're not going to see, for example, Super Mario or basically any games that have already been made. Nintendo basically said I don't think they want to make games like Mario Kart. They just want the characters will be featured. So you will see Mario, you will see Luigi, Sonic, things like that. But I don't think they'll be quite the same games we've seen before. Of course, there'll be elements that are similar.
I think what they're going for is the fact that they're going to have to adapt to the platform. Because controls are different and your input methods are different. So obviously you can't be playing Mario the same way that you were before.
Also, I think as a company, it's an odd move because this is something Nintendo have always been against. They've always said no. They've always been extremely strict about copies of their games. They don't want it to be played on mobile platforms at all. And then they've basically gone totally against their word. Now, it's not necessarily a bad thing because it was clear that the company wasn't doing too well. But the thing I would really like to see, I don't want them to become a mobile gaming company. I want them to still focus on things like the DS and those games while producing a few mobile games, because if they just go 100% focus onto smartphone gaming, I really don't think they're going to keep up with the competition because there's so many.
I think the problem here is the fact that they haven't really had a blockbuster device on the market. They had the Wii, which back in 2006 was revolutionary, and since then,
recently DSs, as far as I'm aware, have been selling well.
Yeah, the DS is, yes, in Japan.
Yeah.
Kind of, if you go more westwards towards the UK and then the US, it's kind of, they've been selling, but it hasn't been kind of enough to put Nintendo on the plus side of their turnover. The key for me is that they need to make a device that people will actually want to buy. A console that will have the backing of game developers, something that might finally rival the likes of the PS4 and the Xbox One. Something that will not just provide entertainment by shaking a remote, because that's terrible, or using like a crappy tablet for games. No, it needs to be something that captures your imagination and it essentially leaves you glued to the TV.
I think the main thing, Nintendo cannot be compared to Sony's PlayStation and Microsoft's Xbox, because they aim for the high quality and good graphics, kind of realistic experience. Nintendo cannot compete with that, and they'll never be able to compete with that. Nintendo is simply simply fun. It's
there's a
simple, basic games that can be played by the whole family, kind of thing. Aimed, younger children can play them. They're not like serious games. It's fun little quests and things like that, and that's really what they need to focus on. I think things like their big gamepad, it was supposed to be like a revolutionary piece of technology that really flopped, was uncomfortable to play with, and didn't have much use in the game. I think they really need to stick to what they've been good at. Games like Mario Kart, Super Mario World, keep it simple and it will sell, because these games are very fun to play.
I don't know. The thing is, Mario, games like Mario Kart and stuff, they've been fun, but the problem is that most people who buy a games console are looking to buy big titles. Your Battlefield, your Call of Duty, your FIFA, your racing games and things like that. Now, some of these titles don't come to Wii, and when they do, they're poor ports. It's not good quality graphics, and it's just not nearly the same experience as you would get on an Xbox or a PlayStation. Now, I think, yes, stand by Mario, keep making those games, but at the same time, make a device that will be capable of good graphics and good gameplay and have exciting games. Bring more kind of challenging titles, more exciting titles, stuff like Titanfall. Bring out a role playing game, a first person shooter, something that Nintendo maybe hasn't done in the past, but to survive, they will need to adapt. They will need to change their philosophy and they will need to go after that higher end market where the big money is. Because Sony and Microsoft have captured that, and Nintendo is really being starved of money as of lately.
Yeah. So, those are actually all the topics from this week's stream. I kind of apologise, the news has been a bit slow this week, but there was definitely some good topics in there. So, I
Oh
really
wait,
hope.
I've got one more
Oh,
bit of big news.
oh
My
yeah.
phone died, like completely. People, I hate LG even more. This is an LG Nexus 5 and it's dead. The power button's mashed. See, this, right, going back to last week, I told you LG was a shit company. See, this thing is crap. It died on me. Don't buy LGs.
Okay. Really hope you enjoyed this week's episode of PFT Talk. Of course, if you're watching this on YouTube, feel free to check the description for the link to our Twitch channel and give us a follow on there. Yep, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please give it a like, share, and why not subscribe to our channel for more content. If you've got any questions, leave them in the comment section down below or email me at the address in the description. Thank you very much for watching. See you.
Yeah. See, this just proves why LG cannot be trusted.